Good afternoon. My name is Martin Pyle, and as Jeff mentioned, I'm a doctoral candidate here. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for the opportunity to talk about what we're doing here. Okay, good. I wasn't sure if it was there. So to start off, I'm going to talk a bit about what these knowledge syntheses are, what they are to us, and then I'm going to summarize one of them, the one on community branding. To start off, the term praxis is defined as a practical application of theory, and it's a synthesis of research and real-world applications. And I think that's what we're really trying to accomplish here with these knowledge syntheses. Our goal is to take the latest research and information that we have available and combine them into accessible and timely summaries for local communities and business leaders, which address the issues that you specify in workshops like today that are facing Eastern Ontario. And I was going to talk a bit about the evolutionary nature, but Jeff's already covered that. So I'll just give you a brief summary of where we're at. The original project called for 18 knowledge syntheses to be published in the 3-year lifespan of this project, with the first to come in January 2009. We have 5 RAs working, 4 others, including myself, and we are actually ahead of schedule. We had 2 published as of Christmas 2008, and 5 more are online right now. Just to give you an idea, these are youth retention, promoting skilled trades, rural investment attraction, physician attraction, and community branding. Projects that are upcoming are value-added production, broadband development, economic development models, youth engagement, downtown improvement, and tourism. So the idea is to produce these reports, take what we know and what information we have, and put together not only a synthesis but also put together resources. A lot of these often include articles or hyperlinks that we hope that you can then take and take these ideas and move forward. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk to you a bit about the community branding paper today and try and give you an idea of how I address this situation. So marketing theory tells us that there are 2 dimensions to branding. The first is brand awareness, which basically deals with how quickly does your brand come to mind when people are making a decision where your brand might be applicable. The second aspect is brand image, which is what is the meaning that people associate with that brand. Now, because of these 2 dimensions, I've sort of laid out the presentation and the knowledge synthesis in this way. So first I'm going to look at the idea of a brand image. And I'm not sure how this got ahead. Sorry about that. So as an example, Prince Edward County, you could probably argue that their brand image involves something to do with wine, and as a food producer, perhaps as a tourist getaway. And awareness is probably strongest in the regions around the area, but it is growing. So this idea, the first point I have up here is a cohesive image. Now, probably you're going to look to generate a community brand for a specific purpose. Okay, and depending on your goal will influence what type of brand, what meaning you want to associate with that. So if you're looking to increase tourism, you'll come up with one idea versus, say, economic growth or increase in permanent residence. And having this goal in mind is really important because it drives everything you do when you go forth and create a community brand. Early on, the idea is also it's important to get community buy-in. This is for 2 reasons. First of all, once you create this brand image, when people actually come to the community, they're expecting to see that image, and the community, the people who live there, are the ones who are going to have to enact this. And if they don't support it, they won't follow up, and the meaning will change. Second important factor is they're an excellent resource. Nobody knows your community better than the people who live there. Now, I keep using this term community, and it's interesting because it's very flexible. The idea of people will have different ideas of what a community actually involves. So on the one hand, a community can be a single town, or it can be multiple towns, or an entire county, or as large as you want. And there are benefits, pros and cons to partnering up with other communities or other organizations. On the one hand, you share the costs, both economic and labor intensive, because developing a community brand does involve a lot of work. It involves a lot of talking to people and developing resources. The downside is you get that many people, sometimes it's difficult to come up with a consensus as to what image you're trying to convey. But once you've defined what your community is, then you can start saying, okay, well, here are the boundaries. What makes us different? What do we have to offer that separates us from other like communities? And that really, once you start looking at that and putting it in perspective of your goals, then you really can start narrowing down what it is you're trying to achieve and how you're going to go about achieving it and what kind of message you're going to communicate. So presumably, once you have this idea, once you've established this community, this brand image, then you need to actually communicate it and increase brand awareness. So the first thing you want to do is look at who are your target markets. Now, the easiest thing is to say, well, we're not picky, we'll just, anybody who wants to come here is great. And granted, that's an excellent idea in theory. The problem is, with such a broad target market, you really don't know who you're communicating with and how to best communicate with them. And I'm assuming that resources aren't unlimited, so you can't just, put the image out through any means possible. So understanding who it is you're actually trying to achieve or trying to reach. And depending, again, this comes back to the idea of goals. If your goals are economic, the target market may be small. You may be looking at specific industries or even specific individuals with skill sets. Whereas tourism, you're looking at a broader method. And once you have this target market, then you look at, okay, what's the best way to communicate this message? How can I reach these people? Now, most communities at this point probably have a web page, which is an excellent place to start. It lets you put out the image you want and communicate information about your community, but it's passive. It requires people to come visit your site. And when developing a community brand, in order to achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself, you may have to be proactive. And this comes back to where knowing who your target market is important. You want to match what you're saying, what your community has to offer with the people you're trying to reach. So if, for instance, your community, you've decided the brand image has something to do with, say, an adventure getaway location, you may not want to necessarily advertise in newspapers or magazines that are read by people who are looking for art museums in their getaways. So knowing your target market allows you to better communicate, more efficiently communicate what your image is. Now, once you've set up these methods for communication, the job is never over. This is an ongoing process and it requires monitoring. And the reason is that sometimes things get lost in translation. So you may think you're saying one image, you're projecting one image, but the people who actually are receiving it, the people you're trying to reach, may misinterpret that. So what you need to do is ongoing monitoring, and it helps sometimes to have specific milestones, set these up initially, places where you want to be, where you want to reach by the time that you're at specific times, so that you can compare and make adjustments as necessary. So that's just a brief example. Within the document, I believe you might have a copy of it in your package. There's also, as I mentioned, resources at the end. So the idea of, I mentioned partnerships. There's information at the end with people that you can partner with and future information. And granted, this isn't as specific as maybe some of you would prefer. The idea is we try to make it useful, but still applicable to as many people as we can. And hopefully you found that the document we produce is both useful, but it also maybe opens your eyes to some new options available. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. And so Martin shared an example of one of the syntheses that we produce in response to the needs that are coming from the community. And as he said, there are 4 more of those online right now. There's, I think, actually 7 in process right now that are being worked on. So, so he said the initial goal was 18 over 3 years, and we're already at around 12 in progress at the end of the first year. So, which is very exciting.